Last week's recording did work and it is now up on our YouTube channel. So Yardley History. So you can see last week if you want to. And I hope this week works just as well. So all of the photos that we'll be seeing tonight are taken from the collection of the Yardley Historical Association. And every time I go through the slides, I discover more places where we could put more photos. So we'll be having some of these in the future because there's certainly more to do. All right, I'm going to go right to share screen and we'll get started. For heaven's sakes, what that's all about. Okay, Yardley neighborhoods then and now. And of course, here's Lake Afton, Lakeside, and Kramer's Bakery. Pretty indicative of Yardley. As we had last week, we'll start with this aerial map. And come on. Oh no, it's the wrong thing. I'm sorry. There we go. I don't know why that there. All right, if it's not going to play nicely, we won't. So here we have Main Street, and I hope you can see the arrow well enough. We have Afton Avenue, West Afton Avenue. Here's Lake Afton, crossing Main Street, crossing the Delaware Canal, and going to the river. Tonight, we're going to start on East Afton Avenue. What? Okay. Where the Kramer's Bakery and CVS is today was a sawmill next to the grist mill. This was Yardley Borough's prime industrial area. The sawmill was replaced by a powerhouse about 1900. The powerhouse was built to provide electricity for the trolley line. This photo was taken early 1930s and it shows the powerhouse after it had been abandoned because the trolley line had stopped, so there was no need for the powerhouse. Today, the powerhouse is the Kramer's Bakery building and CVS. On the south corner of the building was an Acme Market, Valley Market, Poppy's Market, any number of different grocery stores. And it's interesting that the entrance to the market was on the Afton Avenue side. And there was parking on Afton Avenue. And today, you simply have a plain wall. Going east toward the river, you cross over the canal. There's the canal bridge. And this multi-story building was built as a hotel, the Lafarge House, and built to accommodate the canal boatmen, because those canal boatmen every once in a while did want to sleep in comfort and not in that 8 by 10-foot cabin in the back of the boat. The Lafarge House was Resided with shakes. The wooden siding was removed and the shutters were removed. And today it still is a multi-housing building. Um, Apartments are in it. Further down East Afton, you had the Delaware Valley Restaurant. Joseph Roche's came to Yardley in his later years. He had been a chef at the Waldorf Astoria Hotel in New York City and various other fine establishments. He came here. You can see they had fresh seafood and opened his own restaurant. The 1955 flood sort of did it in. Today, these buildings are being used as rental units. Yardley had a bridge. First came the covered bridge, finished in about 1839. And you notice it doesn't have anything but very small windows. And that middle pier, that was a door. And through that door, they could toss the manure that accumulated in the covered bridge down to the river. This photo was taken in 1899. You can see the entrance to the covered bridge. And here's the entrance, guys hanging out. And this was the toll collector's house. And down here in the corner, you see some little certificates because the bridge company, because at that point it was owned by an independent bridge company, sold their own little pieces of currency and got in trouble for it too. Hmm. Well, this is interesting. For some reason, it didn't want to advance. There was a flood in 1903, um, almost equal in magnitude to the 1955 flood, and the covered bridge was washed away in that flood. A steel bridge was erected to replace it. And here you see the steel bridge, which had some nice ornate metal work on top. The toll collector's house is still here, and you have bridge passes for one-horse vehicles. The 1955 flood washed away half of the Yardley Bridge, which crossed over the river to Wilburton, New Jersey. The Yardley side washed away. The Wilburton side stood. In its place was built a Bailey Bridge by the Army Corps of Engineers. And interestingly enough, the flood of 55 took place in August. Santa opened the Bailey Bridge a couple days before Christmas of that very same year. So things moved very quickly. And today, there's no bridge, just remains of the abutments and the Veterans Memorial. Going up West Afton Avenue, we have the Yardley Library. It was built in 1878 as a community effort. The townspeople came together, donating money, materials, and labor. The Cadwallader family contributed a small piece of land by the lake for the project. And this photo shows you what the original library, um, actually, I will take that back. This shows you what the library looked like in 1940 before the 1958 edition was put on. The original library did not have this entrance. The entrance was out on Afton Avenue, and this was put on later. And this door still exists. That's how you get into the basement from outside. This is a picture of the library today. And you'll see all of that foundation that was exposed is now covered up with shrubbery. Farther west on Afton, you had the Cold Spring Mill Store. It was an outlet for the Cold Spring Bleachery, and the outlet was built in the 1960s. Still around when I moved here in 1973, and it was the best place to buy cloth. Absolutely. They had both dress material and upholstery cloth, and in the basement were the oh, ends and such. Really cheap. It was a great place. The Cold Spring, the mill store was replaced with Yardleyville Square. Harkening back to the original purpose, you have Calico Corners and various other businesses, essentially a strip shopping center. We're abandoning Afton Avenue and going down to Canal Street, which runs in back of South Main Street. This is a picture of the Leadham Coal Yard when the canal was still in operation. This was probably taken in about 1931, just before the canal closed for commercial operations, and it shows a canal boat being unloaded. And see this long post? All that's gone now, but the post remains. Is when the entire site was repurposed into a restaurant, residential business use, and a parking lot put in to accompany it. Everyone was very insistent that at least the post be kept to tell the story of what happened there in the past. Oops, I'm sorry. I think I skipped one. I did. In the early 1950s, Leadham Coal Yard, which was then Leadham Lumber, too, had a big storage yard across Canal Street, and there was a catastrophic fire. Fortunately, the fire company was able to get additional water from the Delaware Canal, and they were able to put it out before other buildings caught fire. Other buildings were very close. Today, what was that storage yard is now the parking lot. The Delaware Canal runs in back of Canal Street. This is a picture taken looking north from the Afton Avenue Bridge toward the Brock Creek Aqueduct. An aqueduct is essentially a water bridge that carries the canal's waters over an incoming stream that flows underneath, in this case, Brock Creek. This picture is particularly interesting oh, in that it shows this work scow, which has been converted to haul a small quantity of coal, and it was operated by a member of the Dairy family, which were a prominent family in Yardley's Black community. So Mr. Dairy was sort of running his own business delivering coal locally. Here's what the Brock Creek Aqueduct looks like today. Right here is the aqueduct itself. And then we have South Canal Street, which is totally disconnected by 2 blocks from the canal street that runs directly in back of Main Street. South Canal Street was an old neighborhood. There were houses there in the 19th century, but these houses were built for the workers who came to town to reconstruct the railroad bridge over the Delaware River. They were primarily Irish. These were built by the company. There was a kitchen cafeteria building south of here. This picture was taken in the 1990s and looking the other direction, unfortunately. But you'll see how those twin homes have changed. And here's another view. And the twin homes haven't really changed a lot. The African American Methodist Episcopal Church stands on Canal Street. It was built in 1877. The congregation had been meeting in Yardley since 1817 in the loft of a barn. In 1877, Yardley was in golden period, and things were done. In this case, members of the congregation over in Trenton came and helped to build this church. And it's a lovely board and batten building. You'll notice that the windows are very similar to the windows on the old library because we're talking the same time period. This was a picture taken in 2022. At this point, the building essentially had been abandoned, and Shirley Lee Coursey secured conservatorship um, and began the process of really redoing the building, painting, putting on a new roof, redoing the windows, and doing a lot of renovations inside. And that's what the building looks like today. You can go visit. Shirley has a lot of programs there. To get to South Canal Street, you need to turn off Main Street onto Letchworth Avenue and then turn on to South Canal. This is a picture of Letchworth Avenue in the 1990s. And you'll see that the street is much the same, except a lot of colors on the buildings have changed and the trees grown a lot. At the end of South Canal Street, you'll find Block 5 on the Delaware Canal and the railroad bridge, which was first put in 1876, stands in the background. And here you have a boat ready to lock through to travel north. This is how the site looks today. You still have the railroad bridge. And unfortunately, a park manager back in the 1980s allowed some Eagle Scouts to fill in the head of the canal. So you don't have a functioning lock anymore. And the water for the canal is run through the bypass. Someday that will be rectified. South Street, which is a little tiny short street um, between College Avenue and Letchworth Avenue, has a move structure. This was Archie Gallagher's barber shop, and it first sat beside Starbucks on the north side. It's sort of hard to think that something sat there, but it did. Okay. Um, the mayor at the time, Bob Schmidt, decided that Archie Gallagher's barbershop shouldn't be demolished, and he moved it to his backyard. And there it sits today. Here's East College Avenue looking toward the South Main Street intersection. Um, you'll see this fence and this house and the kids, I think, waiting for the school bus. And here's what that looks like today. This area is no longer fenced in. It functions as a parking lot. On East College Avenue, you have the bridge over the Delaware Canal. And this are folks standing on the bridge looking at their flooded houses. In 1955, the river not only met the Delaware Canal, but overtopped the canal. Fortunately, not by much. And here's that scene today. On West College Avenue, you had the Century Leathering and Enameling Company, which came to do business in town in 1901. Their business was tanning and processing hides and ultimately having the product of patent leather. So can you imagine on West College Avenue having all those hides out in the sun, smelling, processing? And today that is a big, lovely lawn. And we hope it stays that way for many years. At 70 West College Avenue, you have twin homes. And those of you who were here last week might remember the name Mary Yardley and her development desires. She owns some of this land up here and had an advertisement in the Trenton newspaper for homes in Yardley Heights. Today, those twin homes look much the same. The first school building I shouldn't say the first school building because we had an octagonal school up by the American Legion, but Yardley's more official school was built in 1874, and you'll notice this is an old postcard, which often they're not labeled quite correctly, but it had both elementary and high school students within it. And it had two entrances, one for the girls and one for the boys. Okay. That building burnt down in 1917. And I did hear this story that a disgruntled student who didn't want to take a test that day started the fire. This is the building that replaced it. And these high school functioned until, I'm sorry, yes, the high school functioned until 1948 when the Pennsbury School District came into being. Then the school became an elementary school, followed by Pennsbury School District selling the school to the Abrams Hebrew Academy. And this is how the school looks today. Oh, we'll go right down to the river. You have charcoal. It used to be charcoal stakes and things. Before that, dirty bills. And we have some fairly recently acquired pictures, so that'll have to go in another show. But this is charcoal in 1990, and this is charcoal today. And this is the first of a series of pictures that you'll see in the aftermath of the floods of 2004, 5, 6, and 11. After those devastating floods, um, FEMA and property owners elevated their businesses and their homes. And here's charcoal up a story. Picture of the Yardley Inn in 1990 and the Yardley Inn today. Going north on River Road, also known as North Delaware Avenue, you have a rather grand home. This was a picture taken in 1990. The property owner who at that time investigated and found markings on the beams in the attic that probably proved that it was a Sears house, where in the early 20th century, Sears were selling houses as kits. Um, $800 and you got everything but the very heaviest materials used in the house. And they were really popular in towns that had railroad stations because the materials came in by railroad. So Yardley fit that bill perfectly. And that's a research project to be done, is how many Sears houses are there in the borough? I know of at least one other, and there are some that look like they should be. Um, this picture shows you how Sears illustrated their Alhambra model. Okay. Obviously, the Yardley house wasn't quite that elaborate. The Alhambra was the top of the line in Sears houses and went for um, $1,500 to $2,000. When the house in Yardley was elevated after the floods, it went up a story and very definitely more resembles the Alhambra. And This section of Yardley, essentially between Brown Street and the edge of the borough at Florence Avenue, was developed beginning in 1910 by developers from Trenton. It was called Rivermar, and the developers were selling it as a place to come for your summer vacation, for your summer home, and they guaranteed that you could get to the trolley in Yardley in 3 minutes. That's why you have that Mary Yardley footbridge that we saw in the last show. Most of the houses that were built were bungalows. Bungalows were very popular at the time, and the sort of perfect summer home with the porches and the views of the Delaware River. After the floods, many of the bungalows disappeared to be replaced by modern buildings. So this is the same lot. We go from bungalow to multi-story. Um, Along the canal on the north side of Afton Avenue, you have North Edgewater Avenue. North Edgewater Avenue is actually the canal towpath, too. Um, Somehow, in the 1940s, Yardley Borough just paved over the towpath, but it is the only way that these homes can access their properties. This is what North Edgewater Avenue looks like today. The paving stops here to service this house, and we're looking at a photo of Canaloween, where 400 pumpkin carved jack-o'-lanterns line the towpath. Okay. This is North Edgewater at the intersection of Brown Street. And this is what it looks like today. And you can see that some people have elevated and some people haven't. So elevated, not elevated, and so forth up the street. And jumping right to Brees Drive, which is a new drive, relatively, 1970s. Before Brees Drive was put in, there was one house. This was the home of Colonel Robert Belville. Colonel Belville was quite prominent in town. His sister Kitty lived along the river in Lanrick Manor, a Yardley house built by the Yardleys. And Colonel Belville served in India. So Colonel Belville apparently really liked the clothing that in India and often went around with his headgear and his those interesting sort of pantaloon things that they wear. So he's quite the character. He also had a nice garden. Today you have Brees Drive, and this is the house that replaced Colonel Belville's house, but the stone chimney still stands. And on the edge of town, this is where Lower Makefield and Yardley Borough meet, is the Yardley Country Club. And here we are in 1990. And here we are today with a much more elaborate entryway. And we're done. So, one of the things that I liked best about last week's was that after the presentation, you all unmuted and had some really good discussions with each other. So if anyone wants to do that, we'd Just go ahead and unmute yourself. You're good. Or are you all going to be quiet? Okay. No.
I'm, I have a
Go.
question. I'm
Mhm.
curious to know whether the Historical Society has any old photographs of St. Andrew's Church. I'm surprised that tonight you didn't have any photos of that grand old place, and as well as the buildings across the street and up and down Afton Avenue, West Afton Avenue, that have significant historic value, I think. The Cadwalladers, the Twinings, and of course those associated with the church itself and so forth.
Right. Um, as I said, this is presentation was in no way comprehensive. There's lots more to do. We do have photographs of St. Andrew's Church. We have a photograph of the Union Meeting House, which preceded the St. Andrew's building that we see today.
Well,
And we have some succession photos. We have surprisingly not a lot of photographs of the Afton Avenue houses,
oh,
unfortunately. Um,
yeah.
yeah, we have one of the Twining house with um, they had a family reunion and everybody's on the porch, which is a neat photo. You can't tell much about the house itself, and but and we have some streetscapes, which aren't
Yeah.
very good. They're sort of fuzzy.
Do you by any chance know how Afton got its name?
Yes, I think it was Maisie Cadwallader, apparently. At the time the old library was built, I think people were feeling very optimistic and grandiose. So the mill pond became Lake Afton, named after the Robert Burns
I
poem.
I wondered.
Yeah. Flow sweet, flow sweetly Lake, I'm sorry, flow sweetly, some, flow something. No, flow gently, sweet Afton. I'll get
Yes, yes. Yeah.
it. Ew, took a while. Um, and that T. Sidney Cadwallader, who was an attorney here in town, wrote that he attributed the naming of Lake Afton to Maisie Cadwallader.
Oh, okay.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Mhm. Anybody else? Okay. Um, we have a busy year coming up. We have some new walking tours. On Sunday, we're going to have a concert in the old library, the first that we've ever had, called The Unconventional Harp, and we hope that it's going to be one of many. So if you um, want to check out our website, we have a calendar up there. Um, become a member, which would be wonderful because the library started out as a community venture and it won't endure without the community supporting it. We have book swaps quarterly, which harken back to the original function of the building. So check us out. Check out our Facebook page. We have an Instagram account, though I don't know that we quite figured that out yet. Funny about that. Yes.
Susan, I was wondering, since I don't live in Yardley anymore, when they do these walking tours, boy, I'd love to feel like I was part of it. Is there any chance that you could find someone to video the walking tours that you do and then put them on your website?
We need to figure that out, Ginny.
Yeah, something to think about because I know my sister and I in particular I see she didn't make it tonight, but I told her you're recording it. Um, this has been a lot of fun and I think we would really enjoy going along on some of those tours, but she's in Denver and I'm in South Central PA, so it's not going to happen personally.
Yeah,
Probably, probably others that would really enjoy this too.
yeah, I think it probably needs to become a separate videoing venture. We
Yeah,
could,
probably. Maybe not the day of the tour because there's a
yeah,
lot going on and you'll have people all over. But yeah, that would be
yeah,
something to look forward to.
yeah.
Thanks a lot for doing this.
Yeah.
It's fun.
I am a recently become a member, and I received my first newsletter in the mail today. I haven't read it yet, but I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, see, that's a
I'll
benefit of
have to
being a
do that
member.
too. All right.
You get
Thanks.
you get a paper newsletter in the
Yeah,
mail.
yeah. Well, I'm looking forward to reading it.
Good, no. Lots of fun things. You'll see. Do you want to hold it up again, Nadine? Oh, up a little for, yeah. Okay. Um, a very recent acquisition was Algernon S. Cadwallader's top hat, the
Oh, yeah,
beaver hat.
that is
Algernon Cadwallader was the first mayor of Yardley.
wow.
It's very neat. We got it from his great great grandson.
Oh, wow.
So that's exciting. And it has gold embossing, his initials inside, and the name of the London hat maker. It's a very
That's
neat piece.
very, very cool.
Yeah. So through all these things, we learn more and more. We get things that we can share with other people. So thank you all for coming. We need to work on more of these because there certainly are more pictures. And probably now that I get the hang of it better, I can put this recording up on YouTube probably a little sooner. It wasn't nearly as painful this time. So
You've done a
thank
great
you.
job.
Yeah. And all of those things take practice, take time. That's right.
Yeah, well, all these things that are hidden from you.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all for coming.
Good night.
Good night.